Hey everybody, I'm with my longtime friend Chris Peeples, AC Transit board member, and one of the founding members of the Piedmont Avenue Neighborhood League.
Improvement League.
Action League.
Improvement
League.
Improvement.
And that's where the I comes from. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And a longtime
friend of Dan Siegel.
And a longtime friend of Dan Siegel. And Dan passed on July 2nd, sadly. And I couldn't think of anybody better to turn to outside of his own family than the man to my right. This is great. Chris, thanks for taking the time.
Sure.
When did you tell us what you remember about Dan and how you came to know him?
Well, I came to know him when he was still at UC Berkeley.
Oh,
I mean, I didn't
know him well, but I knew of him.
And then I followed his whole fight to get admitted to the bar. He was originally denied bar membership for moral turpitude. And he ended up litigating that in the California Supreme Court. And they decided political activism wasn't moral turpitude.
They were saying that political activism was moral turpitude? Oh my God, that's unbelievable. I mean, I believe that, of course, but I'm saying it's unbelievable that they were just
calling to go take the park was a call to violence, and that was moral turpitude, and therefore he would not be allowed to be on the bar.
Oh gosh, that was Reagan was the governor, right?
Yep.
Wow, doesn't surprise me. My goodness. What was Berkeley? Because I went to Cal as a grad student starting from 85 to 87. And of course, I went to Mesa, Mathematics, Engineering, Science Achievement when I was in high school, the Skyline from 77 to 79 at Cal. That's where we had our classes. But I only heard about that history. But I'm talking to somebody who essentially lived the history. So I have to ask you, while I can, what was it like?
Well, I was 70 miles south.
Okay.
I went to UC Santa Cruz.
Oh, you went to Santa Cruz. Okay.
And so Zach Wasserman and I were on the strike committee in 69 and 70.
There's another history.
And we communicated a lot with the folks at Berkeley.
Wow. And Zach Wasserman has served a number of equally important roles in Oakland history. Of late, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was Coliseum attorney. And, wow. There's a whole book here that needs to be written, Chris.
Well, he Oh yeah. Well, no. Zach has been a very important person in Oakland. He was very close to Mayor Lionel Wilson.
And so, I did not know that.
When Lionel, Lionel was dealing with redevelopment agency, and Zach learned a whole lot about redevelopment agency law. He formed a law firm with Wasserman and I forget his partner, African American lawyer, and they represented the Oakland Redevelopment Agency. And when that firm broke up, I think it wasn't a nasty breakup, but they went their own ways. He went to Wendell Rosen, which was a big real estate firm in Oakland, and he handled their redevelopment work, and he did a lot about representing administrative agencies.
And that was where Richard
He represented ACTC for years.
Wow.
Transportation Commission and its predecessor. That handles all the Measure B and Measure BB money. That out.
Yeah.
Wendell Rosen merged with an Arizona firm. And I think
and I think it got pretty bureaucratic.
And
And Zach chose to retire.
And
He's my age, so it's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. He's still active in politics.
I
I think he's still
the chair
of BCD,
but I'm
not sure of that.
The Bay Conservation Development Commission.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Jerry
Jerry
Brown appointed to that, and he's been on it for years.
And I
think he does a pretty good job
there.
I don't always agree with their rulings, but I think he knows what he's doing and
keeps that
place pretty organized.
How did Dan come?
But we should talk some more about Dan.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did Dan come to be the civil rights attorney that we all know him to be?
I think
that's what he always wanted to do. I think that's why he went to law school.
And he took on a number.
And he did civil rights work
and
employee rights work
from the beginning
of his practice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
he formed a partnership with E. I forget his first name.
And
they did a bunch of stuff. Why am I blanking on her name? She used to.
Oh, I know who you're talking about too. It's on tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
She became a name partner and is one of the name partners.
So it's not a huge firm,
but it does a lot of work representing employees. Employees suing their employees fighting for their keep their jobs.
He did a
lot of that stuff.
I recall I have a number of videos with Dan, and one of them was a case he was telling me about that he regarding Dario Preston. So I'm going to give everybody a look at that, a taste of it, because it's a 15-minute video itself, but you can get an idea through the magic of technology how Dan thought about his cases and, his most important, his clients. Here is the case of Dario Preston versus the City of Oakland, as told by Dan Siegel. Oh, and by the way, I've got to do one thing before I do that. I've got to actually change the audio setting so that you can hear the video, which would be the echo cancellation is off, so that's great. I preset that. I did something intelligent for a change. Awesome. So here we go, folks. There.
So, folks, we are with Dan Siegel, but we're not talking about the mayor's race. We're talking about a very important lawsuit that really does have implications on a number of political matters in Oakland. But, Dan, tell my viewers what the lawsuit is about specifically.
Okay. We represent LaWanna Preston, who is the former Employee Relations Director for the City of Oakland, who was fired by Deanna Santana last year because of disputes about the way in which LaWanna was doing her job. There were a series of disputes between Miss Preston and Miss Santana. Probably the one that's most explosive, because there's so much public interest in it, had to do with the criticisms made of Councilwoman Desley Brooks regarding her efforts to get the Rainbow Recreation Center open. And Ms. Preston's role in that was simply that Deanna Santana wanted her to sign off, first of all, on a report accusing Councilmember Brooks of misconduct, and secondly, to testify that she had witnessed a conversation between Miss Santana and Councilmember Brooks that Miss Preston refused to testify about.
Hey, Chris, do you remember this case?
Oh, boy, do I remember this case.
What do you remember?
It's frustrating because I understand that Desley didn't jump through all the hoops that she was supposed to jump through to get a student center built. But she got the student center built. She got it built years better than would have happened if she jumped through all the hoops, and probably cheaper and better. So I understand that you're supposed to jump through hoops, but she got it done.
And ruffle some feathers along the way, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
I always thought
If you don't jump through the bureaucrat's hoops, they get upset.
yes, they do.
And I mean, the hoops are there for a reason. I mean, it is possible to be corrupt if you do that. I don't think that was the case here. She just got a rec center built quicker and cheaper than normally would have been possible. I don't think she ended up with any money in her pocket.
I don't recall that at all. Let's hear a few more of this. And then we'll...
This is really explosive. So basically what you're telling me and my viewers is that there was essentially a conspiracy to build up a false case, a phony case against Councilmember Brooks. That's what it sounds like. Am I misreading? Am I saying that incorrectly?
I don't think you're saying it incorrectly, but I don't want to overstate it at this point. I mean, as you and a lot of people know, there were criticisms of Councilmember Brooks, alleging that she circumvented various rules having to do with the use of city funds and the use of city labor power to get this Rainbow Recreation Center up and running. And it was cast by not only some members of the council, but by City Auditor Courtney Ruby as kind of a major act of misconduct on Ms. Brooks's part. And it was Councilmember Brooks's contention that she was certainly aggressive about wanting to get this Rainbow Recreation Center open because of its value to young people.
And you know what I remember, Chris, too, is that Courtney was the one, I think we'll break away from that because we could focus maybe too much on that case, but I'm glad Dan did that because I'm now reminded that Courtney was the person that came this close to getting both Councilmember Brooks and Larry Reed arrested for doing something that every council member has done since the, well, onset of the non-tampering rule, and that's basically call a city staffer and say, hey, look, clean up this mess, right? Tampering, as it were. But in 2013, Courtney had this bright, not so bright idea of saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to basically have them censured and make a case to the grand jury that they be indicted for the same action. I remember De La Fuente said, if that's the case, I should have been in jail a long time ago. So
I don't know if she was in a grand jury indictment. I don't know if she was trying to bring criminal sanction. I think she wanted the grand jury to do a civil report saying what they did was wrong.
Okay.
That's really different from a criminal indictment.
Okay. The reason I say that is because I can't give away this conversation I had the morning of the council vote, but the feeling was that if the action of a full censure and beyond the censure were taken, that it would have eventually landed them in jail. And that was the intent by at least two of the people involved who were council members. Okay. who were council members, and it was a very shameful act. So I'm,
but I don't think they were lawyers. I don't think they, the difference in the standard of proof between criminal, civil, and administrative is huge.
yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to be censured and slapped on the hands. It's entirely different thing to be put in jail.
Off camera, I will tell you who they are, and it may shock you. We're gonna have a little fun with that one. But on camera, regarding Dan, I'm glad that Dan stepped up in that case, and that wasn't the only one. What other? My first question is, what other actions do you believe Dan should be most remembered for, aside from People's Park, of course? But also, what do you think about his time in the mayor's office during Occupy Oakland? And after, when he ran for Oakland, mayor of Oakland.
I think he was doing a very good job there. He clearly had a point of view, and I don't think clearly it was very different than what the police department thought. And I've never really understood whether when the mayor went to, I forget it was New York or Washington, and the police went in there and cleaned out the Occupy Oakland, whether that was a setup by the police or whether they knew that was going to happen or whatever. Dan clearly was very upset by that. Now it was not a simple matter. When Occupy Oakland first started, it was a great people's movement. There were California Nurses Association. We're going down there, providing medical care. Lots of friends of mine were going there and providing food. The problem was that when you have no control, the place ends up being taken over by thugs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. Drug dealers all around the Bay Area were coming and working out of Occupy Oakland. Woman got raped, and the folks who were running the place didn't want to allow an ambulance in, didn't want to allow the police in. And I think I mean, I grew up in San Francisco. The Summer of Love, '67 was great. By a year or two after that, it had gone completely off the rails. And we have to figure out how to be able to do an open, free society and keep it from going nuts. And I think that's what happened to the Occupy Oakland. I mean, great idea in the beginning. It was wonderful. By the time the police came and cleaned it out, I'm sorry. I think that needed to happen.
On that note too, related, and we'll turn back to Dan, but I want to share with you, since you intimately know Sanjeev Honda.
Oh yeah.
A video that you may not have seen before, or maybe you saw it, but it's been a while. It's this one, and I will stop screening and then I'll have to go back and get it. Excuse me for a second.
Sanjeev knew more about what was going on at City Hall than anybody.
Yep.
The city manager, the mayor, anybody.
Yep. And I miss him.
I miss him a whole lot.
Yeah. This is Sanjeev. The title of this video is Occupy Oakland. Sanjeev Honda blasts City of Oakland. Says 40,000 condoms are in Oakland City Hall. You can't make this up, folks. Listen.
I believe it.
Hey, folks. Sanjeev Honda, longtime Oakland journalist. Sanjeev, what do you think about what's happened with Occupy Oakland and the way the mayor and the city has handled it?
Well, it's interesting. It got out of hand from the get-go. They started with a protest. It was fine, but there was no engagement. The city, through the mayor, simply ignored the protesters.
Oh, so wait a minute. They lie. Are they lying when they say that the protesters didn't want to go negotiate with them?
No,
That's the message they put out in a press release.
I think that was later.
Ah.
Early on, there was some press about how Jean Quan had come and marched with them and all that.
Right.
And they denied it. They said she never engaged them, she never came out. They get a comment from her. She's been hiding so much we can ask. You know, that's unfortunate for somebody who said she was going to be accessible all the time. And so it's created this dynamic where you got 3 or 4 competing factions. You have the people who were part of the Occupy Oakland movement. You have the unions that recognize that this is the way to
Right.
So the Oakland Education Association, the Teachers Union came out. The SEIU 1021 came out. They rented the porta potties. They provided them other supplies. That's what got David lit.
Right.
They didn't have the money. And then by the 3rd day, people were showing up with donations of food and drink and all of that. And it started to really get out of hand when people from throughout the greater Northern California area and even Oregon and Washington, I talked to people.
Wow.
Showed up.
Jesus. Andrew Breitbart had a guy here, the conservative blogger, and I think he was a local reporter that was stirring things up because he's the guy. One of his people was the guy that got bit by the dog because I was told by Twitter that he was sticking his camera in the tents, private tents.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's exactly what the protesters said, or their occupiers said. Yeah, the reporter was too aggressive, and so they circled around him. The dog bit him on the arm. He called the police. And 20-some police cars responded. I'd have to be
that guy was a Breitbart plant. That was intentional. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And so they pulled up on the far side of 14th Street. The protesters immediately jumped out. Go home. And so you have the 2 lines, and then after a few minutes, it died down.
Wow.
But it was interesting because you got a mix. There were people who didn't mind the media being here. There were those who said, oh, no, I don't want any cameras. Like, fine, we won't take pictures here. But, you know, the signs that were here, my favorite, Robin Hood was no lobbyist. I'm going to send it to every lobbyist. So that was hilarious.
That's a good one.
And then they had a number of others. So, but you know, that was a really interesting one. And then the other thing that was really significant was, I think the 3rd or 4th day they said we're going to rededicate this. It's no longer Frank-Agala Plaza. It's off of Grand Plaza. So they did little cardboard cutouts. They went out and pasted Oscar Grand Plaza on all of the signs that said Frank-Agala Plaza. And put up a big sign, welcome to Oscar Grand Plaza, dedicated 2011. And that seemed to have some momentum. Just interesting and ironically, Oscar Grand's uncle, TJ, Uncle Bobby, got married last weekend. Over at Jeffrey's, and then the reception was over at Everett Jones.
Yeah.
Jefferson Square.
Like that.
And he married Siegel Beatrice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting watching all these people who have had the interaction over the time, come together for funniness.
Right.
And then the other thing you have is that a lot of the people.
Yeah. Oh, hey, how are you doing today?
Okay.
Who are you folks here with today?
Oh, I'm ECA News Service.
Hey.
Okay.
Press is actually behind the barriers, folks.
Oh, where is the barrier?
We started with Sergeant Bolton. I went through.
Okay. I'll talk to him.
I came out of the rotunda, so I had a meeting over there. Yeah.
I'll go check with him, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they checked with the city manager about the stairs, but.
Yeah. So anyway, you say.
Anyway, the upshot is that with all the stuff they've got going on at this point, they're saying they're going to keep coming back day after day after day. So when they saw at 1 o'clock the police barricades were still up, they ended up moving everybody to the library. That's where the protest is up for. And if they come back tomorrow, the moment they pull these barricades, they're all going to come back. So this probably means for the next at least 2 or 3 days, or until the rains come in early November.
Wow.
This is going to be an ugly situation. They had 450 to 500 cops, at least 11 jurisdictions.
Has anyone done an estimate what that costing the taxpayer?
What we don't know is if they have to pay for mutual aid. But figure easy $80 an hour or more per cop. Right there, if you're paid
Probably
for
double overtime, right?
They don't ever get double, they get time and a half.
Okay.
But that would still be, an overtime is probably like $120, $130 an hour.
Right.
And 10-hour shifts, I think is what they were doing. So CHP just, they're the relief. Because they were not here this morning. Everybody said, where's CHP?
Yeah.
So they were on the second team that was arriving so that the first team could go home. The first shift, I should say, not a first.
How do we get out of all this? Is all this worth it? I mean,
That's the interesting question. I mean, I think the idea here was that the Occupy movement spread so quickly, like wildfire. Oakland and Frank and Guy would never imagine this is what would happen here. When they spent $200 million on this, Marble Palace.
and look at it now.
Yeah.
And look at it now. It's like it looks like a biohazard. Like you got the. It's fascinating. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And so, 5 o'clock this morning, the protest has been cleared out. The place is in shambles, and they ended up with approximately 30 public works employees. 18 workers, 10 from the custodian, immediately pitched in, started cleaning up. You still have 300, 400 cops there. They started deploying them and releasing some of them.
Wow.
Hayward Police showed up with a full battalion, mini tank, special units. They've got that kind of equipment.
Yeah, some guy said they bought a scanner, and then somebody else said it wasn't. What was it called? Not a scanner. It's a sound cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they? Okay, it was true. Okay.
Yeah, they had 4 or 5 specialized pieces of equipment right in front of City Hall.
Okay.
And it was so confusing because city employees didn't know what to do. So they were eventually sent an email saying, I show up around 10 o'clock. So, when this dies out. And then 2:30 they started closing city offices. City council closed first, Larry said go home. Then the city clerk's office shut down. So about the only ones that are open are the city attorney, the mayor, and city administrator inside City Hall. But even some of the closed offices, the managers are still there. And they've gotten, from what I've gathered, well over 1,000 calls. Most of them angry, saying, why are you doing this? This is not what I want to see.
Yeah.
Some of the employees are taking a lot of abuse for their profanities and such.
So it's because in Atlanta, they negotiated with the mayor, and they're still there. And they're going to be there until November 7th when the Atlanta City Council takes up the matter. So, I mean, they've had some, perturbations, but anything like this.
Right.
But all the parties are talking to each other, and it's open dialogue.
Right.
Here, it seems like it's not,
Yeah, and here I think part of what broke down was when they issued the first notice that hardened everybody's position. At that point, they didn't want to talk to negotiate. And it was interesting because they had an information table. The most popular thing on it was the Oscar Grant Daily Digest. So today would have been day 13 of that digest. And the least popular thing was the city administrator's notices that he filed color-coded decisions.
Right.
So, they got posted, people came and tore them down.
All over here, right there. Yeah.
But one of my favorite lines out of this is one of the librarians who was here, had brought literature, library hours, Wi-Fi, all that. And she said, things are bad when librarians start to burn.
Yeah. I saw that. I was cracking up. Yeah. That was pretty funny. Excuse me. That was pretty funny to me.
But a third of the literature table was literally information about city services. The county came in, 211.org came in. There was all sorts of information, but people really weren't all that interested in it. And so ultimately, they ended up with a whole bunch of piles of paper that nobody knew what to do with. And that's what started this whole mess, the pile. So once people started bringing their dogs and cats.
Oh, over here?
And this morning you can see there were cans and cans of fancy cheese, cat food, and bags of dog kibble, and chewed up bones and all that. You could see what the city was talking about in terms of the garbage, the litter.
Yeah, and all that. Anybody find any condoms or anything?
Yes.
Wow.
Here's the irony. The first couple of days they were having these meetings, they were saying that we need condoms and all of that. And somebody asked me, said, somebody can donate them? I said, walk into City Hall, ask for Martha Martin.
Yeah.
She has 40,000 of them. So
I didn't know that. Really?
They're filling up the press room.
Condoms?
Yeah. What she did was...
Wait, condoms?
Condoms.
40,000 condoms?
She had piles and piles.
Wait a minute. That's hilarious.
All shapes, colors, sizes.
Were they ribbed?
That I don't know. But the funny thing about it was, they got a grant, using tax money, they bought these, they were handing them out, and she had all this stuff stacked up in the mayor's office, under Dellum. And it was stacked
For
up.
what?
Well, it was a giveaway.
Condom, right. Yeah, I remember, yeah.
But what they ended up doing was, they stacked the stuff so high, so it was the fire sprinkler, the fire alarm went off. So she was told to get rid of the stuff. and nobody in City Hall would take responsibility for it. We gave her permission to use the press room. But, you know, they just talk about our newspapers are fire hazards. This was 100 times floor to ceiling boxes. And that finally got done.
Oh, man. Hey, so Sanjeev, how can people find your work?
Easiest thing, I'm very soon going.
So that sets the tone for it. And I had to let that play over because it's fucking hilarious.
You know what's sad is, other than Noel, I don't think anybody who is currently on the council knows who Sun was.
No, not at all, and not at all. And when you said it was a shit show, what Sanjeev put out right there classically presents and puts a face on what you're talking about. You know, better than anybody else. I mean, and you open the door for that. And Sanjeev has a car live with you for a time too. And Sanjeev knew Dan, and I think they got along, didn't they?
Yep.
No,
Sanjeev was a great person to know.
let me
Let me tell you, he's not a person to have as a friend.
No.
He did not pay his rent.
Oh no. Oh, I remember that. Wow. But he was doing well for a while, and then what happened?
I don't know if he was ever doing well financially.
Oh wow.
He was very influential, and he got along with everybody. Every secretary, every janitor, City Hall gave him all the dirt. He knew everything. But he was never able to monetize that.
No. That's true. That's sad too. It's sad. He passed away. He had a heart attack.
No.
Oh
No.
Go ahead.
He died from complications from diabetes.
Oh, okay. That's right.
I mean, I actually got the coroner's report, but that was very, very sad.
Wow.
What's his name? District 7.
Yeah.
Anyway, felt very bad about it because he saw Sanjeev. He said he was looking terrible. He tried to convince him to go to the hospital, and Sanjeev wouldn't do it. And he was staying with a friend. I mean, he still had all this garbage in my place. But he was staying. He went back to her house and laid down on the couch, and she found him there.
Wow.
But his memorial service was amazing because it was done in Fremont where his parents lived, and they did not know what to do with all the elected officials and significant people who showed up to eulogize him.
Yeah, I gave
he was just Uncle Sanjeev, who played with nieces and nephews, and was just a good guy. They didn't realize how important he was,
No. I gave a eulogy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that was something that's. These are big people. Dan and Sanjeev, they really helped make Oakland, huh?
Well, they helped make Oakland in a certain period. I remember many years ago, I was at a council meeting, which was dragging on forever. And John George and his lady friend, I'm blanking on her name, took me out to dinner at Nations, and John George told me the history of African American involvement in politics in Oakland from World War II to the present, which was somewhere in the 1980s. And there were different people who were as significant as Dan and Sanjeev in different periods of that history. I mean, John George himself was a a very significant person. Why is my mind going blank? The guy who was the editor of the Post, and they named
Paul Cobb.
part of 20th Street. No, not before Paul.
Before
Paul.
Well, Chauncey Bailey worked for him.
Worked for Paul. No.
Right, Chauncey was at the Tribune at the time.
They've named a part of the 14th Avenue after him.
Right. Oh, come on, Zenny. The first, because Paul bought it from this man.
Right, and he owned the Mexican restaurant in Berkeley that was open all night.
Thomas Berkeley.
Tom Berkeley.
How could I forget? Because Mr. Berkeley, Elihu dispatched myself and Tom down to meet the head of the LA County Coliseum on some kind of deal. This is when the Raiders are coming back. And we were sitting in first class on United. And Mr. Berkeley grabs me by the scruff of the neck and says, "Young man, I'm going to teach you how to do
But he and his wife used to go, I can't remember the Mexican restaurant on Telegraph, but they'd go there late. Mary Moore and I would go there to get something to eat after a council meeting. And we'd see Tom and his wife, and she was the accountant. So she would be collecting all the receipts for the day.
Her. Right.
Counting all that.
Yeah.
And Tom would talk about his meetings with Lyndon Johnson and what he did with the Civil Rights Act. Who knows how much of it was true and how much of it was exaggeration. But Tom was a great storyteller.
Yep.
And, he was one of many people in the history of Oakland that have been extremely important. And, of course, Paul Cobb goes back to the 50s and 60s with school board stuff. And John George, we occasionally, at AC Transit, we occasionally get back into fights with the school board about the $2.5 million they stole from us, which was supposed to be used to provide service up to Skyline and Montera. And we still provide that service. Costs us about $4 or $5 million a year. But Paul Cobb, Skyline was originally set up as a white high school.
Yeah.
All the high schools
I went to
in
Skyline.
Oakland, yeah. All the thanks to Paul Cobb. All the high schools in Oakland had Hills to the Bay districts. And then in the late 50s, they decided to build Skyline and do a north-south district, basically Montclair. And Paul, that's wrong. That's racist. Anybody who lives in Oakland should be able to go to this fancy new school. He ended up sitting in and getting arrested, and John George got him out of jail.
Huh. I did not know that. Huh. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And that's why, and unless you lived in Montclair, that's why you were able to go to Skyline.
Yeah, what we did was we had a friend that lived around the corner from us on Brookdale, and we had moved into Captain's Drive in Emeryville, and used our friend's address for my address, and that's how I got into Skyline, because Skyline was a regional occupational center, and I was already taking drafting courses, and I wanted to continue taking drafting courses. I was already taking drafting courses at Skyline before I was ready to graduate from Bret Harte. Okay. And so that's how I was able to maintain it. When everyone else that I knew had to go to Oakland High, and Oakland High didn't have drafting at all.
And that was before, Mary's friend who was on the school board forever, who took on Oakland High as a project and made Oakland High what it is today, with all the special academies and rebuilt and all that stuff. I mean, Oakland High is now a real competitor for Skyline.
Yeah. Yep. That, and also Oakland Tech.
Right.
Yeah, and they really took over, I think, about 15 years ago now.
Yeah, not Oakland High. What am I saying? Oakland Tech.
Yeah,
On Broadway.
yeah. Oakland Tech really ballooned into something
Yep.
special. Uh,
Yep.
And we're talking about Dan and Occupy Oakland, and we're talking about you
Peggy
mentioned
Stinnett.
Peggy
Stinnett was
Peggy
the name I was trying
Stinnett.
to think of.
Peggy Stinnett, who was an Oakland Tribune columnist.
Right. And then
Yeah.
tried to buy the Montclair, and they wouldn't sell it to her because she was a woman.
Yeah. And I remember Peggy and I were walking along remember the Montclair brought me on as a columnist?
Yep.
And that's how I got to know you and everybody else. And I became a columnist because Keith Carson had put me on the Alameda Base Use Committee in '94. Corps of Engineering was behaving the way I thought was corrupt, and I wanted to blow the whistle on them. So if you remember, Amalia Egri worked for Keith Carson.
Yep.
And Amalia and I went to lunch, and I was ranting, and she goes, "You should write a column." And my background's urban planning. I didn't really get what that was, and so she says, "Yeah, write a column and write a query letter and send one to the Montclair, but don't stop there. Send the other to Pearl Stewart at the Tribune." So I sent one to Montclair, where Chris Treader was the editor, who since passed away at 66, rest in peace. And I sent the other Pearl Stewart. And I remember going along Grand Avenue, crossing Grand Avenue at Grand and Elwood to go to Walden Pond Books. And I saw Pearl Stewart, who was the editor, and Pearl saw me, and she literally ducked into a consignment store to get away from me. And I was good. I was like, I don't bite, I thought, I'm not going to even go bother pursuing her. And then, ironically, the next day, Chris called me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to join the Montclair." And so, yeah. And so, during that time, and anyway, that's how I wound up being with it. But I wound up walking with Peggy after some event. And Peggy and I said, "Peggy, what makes a great columnist?" And she said, "A great columnist is best when they're writing and when they're angry about something."
Yep.
You have to be angry about something. I obviously never forgot that. And a long time ago. And I remember I was saying, as far as Dan, you were talking about how the Occupy Oakland people said that Jean Quan never came out, even though that she said she talked to them. Well, they had this event on this Sunday, right after the whole controversy with people getting yanked out, or however you want to put it, raided out or anything. And I remember Jean's daughter. I wish I had put her on video. Maybe I did, and I just forgot where I put it with. But she handled the whole thing excellently, because I was there, someone from Channel 7 and someone from Channel 5. And we were waiting a long time. They left. The people, those folks left. Dan came up. And this is what happened right here with Dan. Wait a minute, excuse me, Chris. That's not it either. I'm trying to get the two-way. Let me go here. There's a two-way setting here that's, for some reason, I managed to accidentally remove. Aha, that's it. So this is what Dan said when he came out to meet the press, and I was the only member of the media that was there. Now, he was the chief legal advisor for Mayor Kwan at the time.
Right. I'm not getting any audio. I'm not getting any audio.
Oh, you can't hear it? Oh, thank you for telling me. You know why? Because what happened was I have to set the audio. Every time I do that, I have to turn off cancellation. And having done that, I'll roll this back a bit to here, where we started right about there. Right, there. Okay, sorry about that, Chris. Thank you for telling me. All right, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Siegel. He's been a longtime Oakland lawyer, activist, confidant of the mayor. Where are we right now after all this bedlam? And first of all, how do you feel? How are you doing?
How do I feel? Well, it's been an exhausting week, right? This is the third day of all day, all night activities. I was very, very unhappy with what happened Tuesday. I thought the decision to take the camp down was an unnecessary and counterproductive decision. I think what happened Tuesday night in terms of the police activity and so on was completely predictable, right? It's not the case that all the police were engaged in misconduct, but when you have hundreds of police officers and thousands of demonstrators, there's going to be some people on both sides who are spoiling for a fight, and particularly after 12 or 16 or 18 hours of being on duty. And there was some horrible incidents, and I actually saw some of them.
Yeah, I gotta ask you, we've both been here for a long time. We strong mayor and everything. Could the mayor have made the call to say, hey, look, I don't want that done? Do you have any idea what the situation was where, because people say it wasn't her call, but she's the mayor, right?
Right, and I think that, the buck stops with the mayor.
Yeah.
The mistake, in my view, is a mistake of the city, not of one individual. Certainly, the city administrator, the mayor, the police chief, all agreed that the camp should be disassembled.
Are you saying the city administration should be fired? I'm going to try to put words in your mouth, but it just seems like every time I turn around, it's Deanna's making the call, and, Gene's stepping back, and I'm saying, well, come on, what's up here, I just asking.
I'm not for firing anybody. I'm thinking that this was a mistake, and people should learn from the mistake and not repeat it. So that's what I think about that.
Where do we go from here?
So the conversations that I've been having with people in City Hall are along the lines of we need to change the paradigm. If your paradigm is we have a city plaza, it's not a campground, people can't camp there, it's kind of messy, you've got sanitation problems, health problems, safety problems. If that's as far as you look at it, then the decision that people should leave is kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
But I think the paradigm has to be changed. That we're literally in a national crisis that maybe none of us have seen in our lifetimes. The amount of poverty, unemployment, homelessness, the denial of public services is really at a crisis level, and people are responding. And I think that's really good that people are responding. And I know that Mayor Kwan thinks it's really good. And so the paradigm has to be, how do you situate yourself, your city, your government in the context of what's taking place? And by the way, I think this is going to be years. We're going to have years of this.
Oh, yeah.
And so are we going to be part of a wave that sends out the police and the National Guard and so on to crack down on people demonstrating around economic injustice? Or are we going to bend a little bit and do our best to facilitate this activity? And clearly, I suppose you can tell by the way I frame the issue where I stand. I think that the people who are part of this Occupy movement are incredibly reasonable, virtuous, idealistic people, and I like what they're doing.
Hey, is the mayor going to speak tonight?
She is not going to speak tonight, and she wanted to. The agenda is, I guess because of the democratic principles behind what's going on here.
Oh,
the agenda,
this happened in Atlanta with John Lewis.
The agenda.
They gotta straighten that out.
For no man or woman.
Oh my gosh.
And I talked to the people who are leading the meeting tonight, and they're not hostile at all. But the rules are they're going to have an open mic at the end of the agenda, and if the mayor or anyone else wants to get online and get a couple of minutes at that time, she's welcome.
In other words, Dan, I'll say it. Protocol is dead.
Hey, oh man.
I heard a conversation earlier. There was some rumor that Rachel Maddow was.
Yeah, it was on Twitter. Yeah,
And,
well, actually, somebody from her show. It's like they got a feed waiting. She's not here, but they have a feed waiting. Is what
So she has to wait too.
Hey, Dan, thanks a lot, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that was he stepped forward. He really helped straighten it out. The whole situation, because like I said, until Gene's daughter came in, it was really awful. The whole thing, it was a Keystone Cops look. It was really bad. There was nobody in charge. No one wanted to take
Dan was
so articulate.
Yep.
You know, he was reasonable and rational. I mean, he was very far left.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it in a pretty reasonable way. I mean, he was talking about how terrible things were back then. God only knows what he's thinking about what's going on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh gosh.
I mean, in LA, the city administration didn't want him to do anything, and they had tanks, right? Not tanks, armed personnel carriers, forces with National Guard and Marines coming in with a bunch of unknown thugs with masks over their faces,
Yeah,
trying to find somebody. And the only thing they found were a bunch of kids in the playground. They didn't arrest a single person. They had hundreds of people there. It's all theater. It's all theater for one viewer.
It made me. I just made a video where I said that we shouldn't defund the police. In fact, we should turn the police into a militia of our own, to stop President Trump from coming in to take over Oakland. It's a different way of thinking, but that's for another conversation. How do you think Dan will be remembered in our history?
The problem with that is they got more guns than we did.
Like I said, I figured out something. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. But how do you think Dan should be remembered, or will be remembered in history? Because I think it's important to maintain
I think
his memory.
I think he was a singular presence in Oakland. He was the leader of a lot of left-wing stuff. His law firm did a lot of very important work. Took on cases that nobody else would take on. I think he will be very. I mean, what I remember about him is he was a hell of a cook, and he had an attachment to his stove that was made specifically for wars. And I don't know how many BTUs it had, but many. And so he could do walk stuff that needs very short but high heat.
And out of that, I bet came some amazing dishes. Hey, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for spending the time. And we'll do it again, because it occurs to me that in talking about Dan and talking with you about him, and then by necessity having really to bring in Sanjeev and then think about that, there's a whole tapestry of people that make up Oakland, and I think I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of it, even though if I tie together all the videos that I made going back to 2006, it's a lot. I think could put together pretty credible history, but I'm not satisfied, because they're not one-offs, but they're episodes. Like, for example, I interviewed Don Parada when he was running for mayor and everything. But on the other hand, I probably have the only interview of him that's long form when he was running for mayor that was on YouTube at the time, because YouTube was still new. So there's some road to be paved there.
Yep.
You know,
Well, you know,
the
the market,
market has changed so much
that
that there's no longer local news.
you know, the
The
Tribune,
Tribune is now owned by some
again,
and
who knows
who knows nothing about Oakland is published out of Pleasanton. The local news, both radio and TV,
is cut,
is cut way back.
yeah.
So it gets left to bloggers like yourself,
and then
trying to create a whole narrative
from what
you've got, from what other bloggers have got, is difficult.
And that's the thing. There aren't a lot of Oakland bloggers. The ones that were active are not active. I go back to, well, Bruce Nye passed away and Make Oakland Better. Echo has been out of it for some time. We've had episodic participation, right? And then there's one person.
Rebecca Saltzman used to
right.
run a blog.
Right.
It was very good.
Yep.
There was a woman, I forget her name, but she worked for the library.
That's Echo Snyder.
Yeah.
They called her Be Smooth. Yeah. We were good friends at the time. Yeah. And
I don't know what's happened to her.
I don't either. I meant to look her up, but I'll try again sometime. It's just, I'm caught up in a lot of other things. But on the whole, if you think about the years, I started Oakland's first blog in 2000. Well, actually, it was 2022. 2002. And I was using something called Pyrolabs Blogger, and then Google bought it. And I remember the day I was shifted over with it. And I also started Zenny Zeitgeist. But I started doing all that because Jerry fired me, and then I started Sports Business Simulations. I was trying to figure out a way to get traffic to my website, which is a Game of the A's, and I discovered blogging at 1:30 in the morning, literally the platform. And I thought, wait a minute. And then I realized people were feeding me all these, they were talking to me about, including Sanjeev, all this stuff was going on about Jerry, right? And I thought, wait a minute, I can put it on my blog. And I remember running into Jerry at Cafe Van Cleef, and he called me Carl Rove or something. I don't know. But he seemed to get a kick out of it, because, well, I mean, I wasn't being insulting. I was just telling what happened. So, it wasn't that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a lot.
That's another institute that has lots of history, and it would be interesting if somebody wrote it. Cafe Van Cleef.
Yeah, because I've got, wow. You're absolutely right, because let me show you something.
I
remember Mary King
when she
worked for Rick Fernandez when Rick was in jam at AC. The two of them always used to go to Cafe after work and have a drink.
Do you remember the Oakland riot? Remember when Oscar Grant was shot?
Yeah.
I will show you something you may not have seen before. I have a ton of videos. First of all, this is Peter Van Cleef. Well, actually, let me show you the other one because this happened. Let me show you this first. This was after. This is the day later, because I round up getting caught in it, which I'll play after this one, because the other one got me a TV show, but this one, let me change the settings so I don't make that mistake again and put it back on. Echo cancellation is off now. Okay, so you can, if it's echo cancellation is off, then you can hear this. Yeah, there it is. All right, and so let me play that. This is Peter and I walking along, talking about the Oscar Grant murder, right here.
Your place tonight.
Come on.
I think had this happened a week ago, if there was some response, some immediate response when this tragedy occurred, there would not have been a riot. And it's long overdue. Somebody had to make some kind of statement.
Right. Over here. Yeah.
I was pleased that Oscar's mother went on the news and pleaded for the rioting to stop.
Yeah.
So as not to desecrate her son's name.
Again.
Better celebrate that young man.
Yeah, definitely.
And then,
So where do we go from here as a city?
where does Oakland go as a city?
Yeah.
Oakland's had a lot of bad things happen in it.
Fox is a good thing right there.
The Fox is magnificent.
Yeah.
Because I'm worried about pedestrians.
It's just one more battle, and the war is won by many battles. Oakland will move forward and grow. We're looking at the future Arts and Entertainment District.
Yep.
I had this vision in 1998. I saw bars and restaurants on both sides of the street for 4 blocks, and now it's coming to pass.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Slowly but surely, definitely. Oh, here we go.
I suppose. I mean, this is just nothing's going to stop Oakland from growing and evolving.
Yeah.
And I see nothing but a good and strong future.
And check out Cafe Van Cleef, right?
Oh, Cafe Van Cleef is the heart and soul of Oakland. It's the essence of Oakland.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one, and then among them there's another. This was so the Oscar Grant riot. Zenny 62. Yeah, here that's yeah, this is
his uncle.
Davey D is his uncle? Hold on a second, let me open that up. There.
Hi everyone.
I'm
excited to tell you that on Saturday.
Let me go to the part that has to do with Cafe Van Cleef directly, so I'm not rushing through it here. Hopefully this renders. Yeah, here it is. There's Peter. This started right here. All right, there we go. Okay.
When I was trying to talk to Councilmember Larry Reed, who's right over here. There's certain parts like this area are pretty much untouched. Go down and see if we can talk to some other few folks about what happened.
That's 16th and Telegraph.
The answer to this problem. Somebody should have said something. OPD, a BART. It was a BART situation. They should have made a statement. We're looking into it. We're doing something. Anything. But silence created the situation that occurred tonight. When there's no answers, a demonstration turns into a riot.
Sad. It's very sad day for Oakland.
It's very sad for Oakland because it looks bad for Oakland, but Oakland's not to blame. It was very unfortunate.
Jesus Christ. Man. Jesus Christ. There was some guys back there that were stomping on a car. That's what was going on. So here comes the copter, which is right there. And there they go.
They're choking on people's cars.
Just indiscriminately.
There's a crowd of people going from
these guys.
Plaza. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this
I
is
actually
really
just
nuts.
need a ride BART, actually.
Wow. Oh, sorry.
What's closed right now?
No, you gotta get out. You gotta wait for things to move. I would advise that you
We smelled tear gas down the street, so we came inside.
You know what? I recommend inside.
No, seriously. No.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Seriously. But I don't want my car to get bashed in.
Well, you know what? It's just a car.
No, it's not. Finish my drink then.
Hey, Chris, that's so Peter. It's just a car.
They're walking and you just go.
Peter, how you doing?
Please don't bash my car. No, they're walking straight. They're not walking left. They're walking
No,
straight.
he said this like kind of indiscriminately.
Yeah.
So where I am is sort of a sanctuary. I guess it's Cafe Van Cleef. I was talking to Peter Van Cleef before. That's Peter, who's locked. Peter, we're all locked in now, thankfully. Thank you very much.
Well, we're locked in for safety.
Yeah, definitely. I just like
There's roving gangs of youth.
Yeah, I saw the guys stop on the cars over here. Went into 17.
So our gates are locked in, and our customers are inside. We're safe.
So, folks, if you find yourself in the middle of a riot in downtown Oakland, Cafe Van Cleef is the best place to be, right, Peter? This is the safest place to be.
The gate is down. The gate is down. We're locked in.
That's right.
Because there's groups of youth breaking windows, jumping on cars, and generally rioting.
Yeah. She said they're tear gassing at the ice rink?
All right. Thank you.
Man. The ice rink is down here. I smell something weird.
Yeah, I'll stop that part. But that's just a taste of that's Peter Van Cleef.
Yep.
And that was a time in about a month. It wound up being shown. I had a TV show called The Blog Report with Zinni 62. So that was actually shown nationwide. We started in 2009 and in 2011. So we got to do this again, Chris. And I'll find some other stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a lot of history there, my friend. And
A lot of history.
yeah. Hey, thanks for the time.
Good to talk to you.
You too, man. You got it. Yeah, God bless you. I'll see you, okay?
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, see ya. That is the street.